Arms, things to know and their relationship to the body. So, how do we know how long our arms should be? Where should things be placed in the arms? Start things off by creating what we've done so far in simple shapes and terms. We can add the details to these things later. You can take a look over here to the right that I've done just that. I've done everything on the body except for the arms. Generally, the arms are drawn last. Great, so let's understand arm length. How long should our arms be? So, and this is in general terms, the elbows sit just where the rib cage ends, right above the waist. So what you're going to do is you're going to add some circles for elbows, roughly half the size of the shoulders, like I've done here. Then you're going to add lines going from the outer shoulders to the inner elbow area. Okay, the reason for that is you're going to follow the rough contours of the muscle of the arms. The palms, which are represented by vertical ovals, they sit at the upper thigh length. Your fingertips, when we draw them, will be reaching the mid-thigh. Remembering from last lesson the New Hampshire and Vermont shapes for the forearms, we will add straight lines to the outer elbow and the outer palm. And booyah, you've got proper arm length. Now let's add some thickness to our arms. Let's give it some girth. So the upper arms will be accompanied by a tree trunk-like cylinder on each arm that's like 2/3 of the width of the head. Keep in mind that these are cylinders and not boxes, as you'll see in a bit. That's very important because when we're drawing the arms at different angles, we want to think in 3D, especially when we're drawing the rest of the body as well. Now add your New Hampshire and Vermont shapes for the forearms, and voila, you have the arms and almost a completed figure ready to go. Look how great that is. You did such a good job. So first, let's add the finer details and the shadow to the arms we just created, along with the hand draped to the side. So start by drawing the hand and make sure that the back of the hand and the forearm are one synonymous curve. It's a very light curve. It should almost be a straight line. You can get a good essence of this if you happen to look at like old, like Batman the Animated Series. They do this really well, where it's straight lines accompanied with curves. Now you're going to follow through with the bicep and tricep curves as you see here. Let the shoulder curve in between the bicep and tricep like we've done so. Remember that the hand's draped to the side, so we have to show that those curves change depending upon the position of the arm. So now we're going to be adding the shading as if the light were above the models, like we've been doing with the other lessons here. So essentially the undersides of all the like downward curved objects, they're going to have shadows. So when it's all done, your arm should look like mine, shadows and all. Now, let's talk about arms facing different directions and foreshortening them. We haven't really talked about foreshortening, but foreshortening is very important when you're learning to draw people. It makes things look like they're coming at the viewer. It's fantastic. So what is foreshortening? Webster's dictionary defines it as to portray or show an object or view as closer than it is or having less depth or distance as an effect of perspective or the angle of vision. So simply put, it's showing the illusion of depth by shortening an object. So now we're going to try to do this with arms. Just follow my example and it will start to click for you. Remember, we're drawing a 3D shape. It's not a flat object that's going on that page. We're creating the illusion of 3D with the body. So the cylinders, shapes, and spheres and cones are all really important. So you might ask yourself, how do we draw a foreshortened arm or bent arms? Let's start off with our simple shapes that make the arm, like we see here, the sphere and the tree trunk. Now see how the simple shapes that make the arm go from skinny to wide are becoming shorter? The more we add depth, the more something looks like it's coming at you. And so that coming at you view is me shortening the size of that arm or the piece of object that you're drawing that's coming at the viewer. Because I applied those effects, the arm looks like it's raised slightly. The key here is to think of an object as a 3D form when you draw it. Here's the same principle with a bent arm. Almost like he's about to swing a punch at a mean villain. But what happens when we apply the meat to our simple shapes to make it look better? So we're going to start by adding a hand to our arm like so. And remember that the hand is at an angle, so we're only going to see a few fingers and knuckles, like I've drawn here. So try to follow along, take your time. I know the hand can be a little bit confusing, but again, practice. So as we draw the underside of the forearm, we need to keep in mind that when the muscles contract, they become slightly larger and they thin as they expand, much like the backside of the forearm here. So it's represented by an almost straight line. That straight line stays flush with the back of the hand or the last knuckle, as we can see. So following that complicated rule I just explained, finish up the muscle lines and begin adding your shadows like you see here. Notice I'm imagining that the light's coming top down at my object and everything inward is going to receive a shadow. So here's a fully shadowed and finished arm. Looks kind of beefy. You can see I added an extra vein in there just for good measure. You don't have to do that. I'm just being goofy. So here's the beginnings of a hand that's open and facing the viewer. Notice how all the cylinders of the arm are there. It's just you can't see them due to the perspective. One object is behind the other, which is behind the other. So again, I'm thinking in 3D when I'm drawing it, and it's still there, but when the finished product happens, we really won't see it. So you can see right here, I'm adding the palm and the finger shapes. Now it's time for some of the finer details. And finish it up. Add your shadows, finish up your hand coming towards you, or arm coming towards you. Now for the final part of the lesson. Can you replicate the simple shapes that make Goku's arm shown here? Break it down into simple shapes and blocks to help you learn foreshortening. So here are your goals for the assignment. Create one full body drawing, minus the feet, of course, and apply the details and shadows, including the face. Recreate the bent arm from the video, and create the simple shapes from Goku's arm. Ah, my Lego.